workers from the AKSSMA, Allan Kardec Spirit Society, Massachusetts, for the invitation that we have that spend some time together
para reflexões em
in
torno
order
do
to
conteúdo.
reflect upon the contents of Spiritism. We know that the pandemic, the social transformations, political and economical crisis that have really reached all over the world, the planet, all the locations. It is a unconditional sign that we have really reached the vortex of planetary transition. Social and political conflicts, the quarantine, the staying at home, situations where we could not have thought about them beforehand. It's challenging situations, nevertheless. And in these dynamic of fights, of challenges, oftentimes our hearts is taken from the fear, from anguish, from some preoccupations of the lack of hope. And why not? From a certain pessimism in relation to the developments of happenings or what's happening on Earth. Many times we realize or we take into consideration superficially only, we are taken to think that Earth is a great boat that has no destination. It's a great ship without a finish line, just going and going at the mercy of winds. We have this impression sometimes. And many hearts have experienced depression, anxiety, anguish, lack of hope or trust in the better times ahead. And it's in this very difficult time of planetary transition that we are called to reflect upon the role that Spiritism has, which is consolation. Even from, or starting from the first hour that Allan Kardec started compiling the works of Spiritism, it's been called by him and by the superior spirits the promised consoler, the promised consoler.
Lembrando da força dessa palavra.
Let us remember the power of this word. How grave or how difficult the moment that we go through is. I'd like to start our reflections, which is a simple talk without any pretension around the teachings that the spirits have brought to us, those that were compiled by Allan Kardec, and then you were developed by the other works. I'd like to start by the Gospel of John, chapter 14. So John's Gospel has over 2,000 years that this Gospel was written, but it feels like it was written like yesterday. It really looks like the purpose of that was to console our hearts today. And in the chapter 14th, Jesus calls the apostles in private and talks to them. Talks to them in a very intimate way, privately, loving, but in a way that it's very serious, nevertheless. A very serious manner. Jesus says, I quote,
Não se
do
perturbe
not
o vosso coração.
let your hearts be troubled.
É uma frase para hoje.
It's a phrase for today, folks.
Nós poderíamos repetir
We could repeat this
essa frase hoje para o mundo inteiro.
for the entire world, if you think about it. Do not let your hearts be troubled.
Porque o coração é como
Because our hearts,
tem dia que ele amanhece bravo.
it's like an ocean. Some days the tides are more dangerous. Some days the tides are more calm or calmer. Some days it's serene. Some days it's part of the dimensions of our emotions. These oscillations, these changes,
O oceano.
that really brings us back to the ocean.
Perturbe o vosso.
Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God.
Crede também em mim.
Believe also in me.
Então Cristo está aqui
So,
pedindo
Christ is asking us
confiança.
for a vote of confidence.
Precisamos frisar isso.
I like to really emphasize this.
Nessa fala,
So, in these words to the apostles,
Jesus está pedindo
Jesus
voto.
is asking for a vote of trust.
Nós
We
temos confiança em Deus,
we trust God,
o Criador,
the creator
tem
of the universe, omnipotent, supreme intelligence of the universe,
causa primária de todas as
first cause of all things.
Mas aqui é o Cristo.
But here it's Christ telling us.
Jesus pedindo
It's Jesus asking us,
voto de
give me a vote of confidence, folks.
crede também em mim.
Believe also in me.
Por que Jesus diria?
Why was Jesus saying that?
Por que ele pediria?
Why was he asking for a vote of confidence to each one of
Ele
us?
sabia
Because he knew.
que nós atravessamos
He knew that we would go through great
como
torments,
tempestade que estamos atravessando agora.
like
E que nessa tempestade
the weather that we're going through today.
chegaríamos a pensar
That through this
que a Terra é um
moments,
navio sem
we would arrive in
que a
places
Terra é uma
that
embarcação
Earth
à deriva,
is a boat with no destination.
náufrago.
Earth is not a boat without a destination. Rather, that has not been lost. Absolutely not.
Não é o caso.
It's not the case.
A embarcação terrena possui,
So the boat is not adrift. This boat has a captain.
possui comando.
It has
Eu
a
me lembro aqui do poema de
someone at the helm of it.
Oh,
So I remember
Captain.
the poem from Whitman, "Oh Captain, my Captain."
Então aqui nós temos o capitão da embarcação.
So we have the captain of my boat,
governador espiritual,
the governor of our planet,
que dê confiança.
asking us for a vote of confidence. Trust me, believe in me.
Nós atravessaremos
We
a
will go
tempestade,
through
mas eu estou no comando da embarcação.
a difficult storm, but I am the helm of this boat. And he keeps saying, he says,
Na casa de meu pai, há
my father's house has many, many dwellings.
Jesus diria isso.
Why would Jesus say that, folks?
Por quê?
Why would he say that?
Se não fosse assim,
If that were not so, would I have told you that
vou preparar.
I'm going to prepare a place for you?
Por que que Jesus começa
Why would Jesus start consoling us by saying there are many dwellings in my father's house?
Penso eu,
I think that myself,
fechar a questão,
without closing the question, obviously,
sugestão
just bringing a personal suggestion, I think that
que quando nós olhamos
when
para a Terra,
we look at Earth,
olhamos para o cenário
we look at the political sphere, economical sphere,
da saúde planetária,
we look at planetary health with this pandemic,
todas
when we evaluate all these storms together through which Earth is going through right now,
nós chegamos a pensar que
many times we think that Earth
o único planeta
is the only planet that has a population that's inhabited.
muitos de nós
Many of us
alimenta esse
feed that thought
de que a Terra é a única morada,
so we believe that Earth is the only inhabited planet, or
pensamos que se
we think that if there are other
são iguais ou
inhabited places, they're either like Earth or worse than Earth.
E isso nos
And
leva
this takes
a um
us, or
sentimento
this
de
concept takes us
pessimismo,
from a pessimistic, feeling or of
de
anguish,
perspectiva.
of lack of hope, of lack of
Na
perspective.
realidade,
And in
todos os
reality,
filmes
all of the movies
franceses
that have been
sobre o
produced
futuro
towards the future or
são
about the future
que
are
mostram a
movies
Terra sendo
that
devastada,
show Earth
que
being
mostram a Terra
devastated,
sendo destruída,
that show
que
Earth, that
mostram a
show Earth
humanidade
being
chegando ao
destroyed,
fim,
humanity coming to an
uma
end,
catástrofe,
showing
que
catastrophes,
mostram uma falência do projeto humano,
that shows a
uma
fallacy of the
falência
human
da
project,
humanidade.
or
Então,
a failing of humanity, so to speak.
então,
So,
Kardec,
Allan Kardec,
orientado pelos espíritos superiores,
driven or guided by the superior spirits,
essa fala de Jesus,
he commented that
na casa de meu pai, há
words
muitas
from Jesus where there are many dwellings in my Father's house.
que ele
And Allan Kardec himself gave
ao
a
capítulo
title
3 do
to
livro,
the chapter 3rd from the Gospel according to Spiritism
o capítulo 3 se chama
with this very same name. There are many dwellings in my Father's house.
E eu vou ler o item 3.
He's going to read the item 3
Item 3 de O Evangelho.
from the Gospel according to Spiritism.
O Flávio abrir aí o capítulo para fazer a tradução, porque tem uma belíssima tradução em inglês.
There's a great translation.
do Evangelho segundo
So if you're looking for that book, you can get that from fatpublisher.org.
do ensino dado pelos espíritos.
So Allan Kardec or the spirits say, I quote, from the teaching given by the spirits, one comes to understand that the various worlds are in conditions very different from one another as to the degree of advancement.
Olha que frase belíssima.
Let's look at this phrase.
Não existe só
There are not Earth. Earth is not the only place. Universe is populated not only
problemas da Terra.
like places like Earth with same problems. And he continues.
Condições são diferentes.
So these conditions are different
Adiantar.
from one another as to the degree advancement or the lower order of status of their inhabitants.
Então, raciocinemos.
So let us think about this.
Há muitas moradas,
There are many dwellings in my Father's house,
mas uma habitação
but with
reflete o
what-
morador.
inhabitant or the habitation of that reflects who is living there, right?
Apresenta
So,
essas condições
Earth presents these conditions that are very challenging because the folks that live on Earth
superiores.
are still not superior spirits.
Por outro lado,
From another angle,
existem outros órgãos
we have other places, other dwellings
que são habitações
that are-
de espíritos superiores e, portanto,
that are inhabited by superior spirits and therefore have different conditions than Earth.
prossegue.
Allan Kardec continues.
Entre eles
Among them, among these worlds,
há
are
aqueles
those
que são inferiores à Terra.
whose inhabitants are physically and morally even less evolved
Física
than those of Earth. Physically and
Então,
morally,
a
folks.
Terra não
So,
está na pior condição.
Earth is not in the worst of the places, of those places. There are other places
Mais primitivos
that are more primitive.
planetas
There are planets
passando,
that are going through
a Terra já passou.
what Earth has gone through before.
Ainda nem seres humanos.
There are not even human beings in these places.
Existe apenas uma vida
There are
animal.
only an animal primitive life in those places.
Kardec prossegue.
Kardec continues.
Esses mundos são inferiores fisicamente.
These worlds are inferior physically because there are no cities, no universities,
Não existem instituições
no institutions. It's a very primitive life,
físicas.
physically and morally.
Kardec continua.
Kardec continues. Others,
Da mesma
inhabitants,
que o nosso.
are of the same level.
Então existem vários
So there are other planets, several ones through the universe, like Earth. I think it's important, some numbers. Some numbers. Scientists today approximately, remember, approximately calculate that only in our Milky Way, only in our galaxy, there are around 100 billion of solar systems. 100 billion of solar systems, only in the Milky Way. So they calculate that in our material universe, that it's known by now, there are 200 billion galaxies. So it's a very infinite number almost, that we lose track of it. We can't calculate about it. We can't calculate it. We're talking about trillions of planets only in the Milky Way. So we need to amplify our minds. Earth is not parameter to measure the universe. Earth is not parameter to measure the universe. The universe is infinitely greater or bigger than Earth. So Kardec, as didactic as he can, or pedagogical as you mean, others are the same category. What does that mean? They have prejudice, they have inequality, they have violence, fights, pandemics, they have everything that Earth has.
Alguma coisa parecida com coronavírus?
Something like coronavirus, yes, absolutely.
Aí ele continua.
So he continues. And others are more or less superior than Earth. Look at that. More or less. What does that mean? There are planets that are much more superior than Earth, and some that are a little superior. So it's an infinite scale. It's a graduation, infinite graduation, or gradation, or leveling, as we know, scale. So Kardec's almost like giving us a lesson of hope for all of us. There are many dwellings in my Father's house. Why do we study that? We study this because we need to have hope. This gives us hope, to fill our hearts with hope. Earth is not the first, neither the last degree of this ladder, folks. Let us have hope. There are many dwellings in my Father's house. The challenge is not lack of place. The challenge is who is living in those places. It's the inhabitant, because the tenant has to get better to deserve a better place. Let's continue. On lower order worlds, the existence is completely material. The passions reign supreme, and moral life is almost non-existent. It's not our case. Of course, it's not on Earth. On Earth, the material existence is not what determines or reigns or guides. No, we're here doing a live online using technology. We're here studying the beauty of creation. So we have moral lives. We have moral lives, absolutely do. How many folks are spreading the good, are being charitable, are spreading knowledge and love? So we have moral lives. Absolutely we do. There are other worlds that are inferior. So he continues, to the degree that moral life is developed, the influence of matter diminishes in such a way that on more advanced worlds, life is entirely spiritual, so to speak. So in the advanced worlds, there are no virus. There's no COVID, because life is 100% spiritual. So this is a challenge of the material worlds. So it's important to set us up, right? Or to get us to the same level. So we can't be consoled if you don't see a perspective. What Allan Kardec is doing here is giving us perspectives to the different worlds. A perspective of future. Earth is not the end of it. Maybe it's not even the middle of it. I'm not sure if we have some technical difficulties. Oh, we're back. So Kardec presented many models of classification for us to understand. So here he's going to talk about the first model. Which one is it? You can divide worlds in three categories: inferior worlds, intermediate worlds, and superior worlds.
Ele vai descrever
He's going to describe the intermediate worlds. In the intermediate worlds, there's a mixture of good and evil. Isn't that the situation of Earth right now? Isn't, good mixed with evil? The charity with, crime, and the wise with the ignorant, the balanced with the unbalanced. So it's all mixed up. So we are an intermediate world. Isn't that so? So then he tells us it depends on the degree of advancement. So it's an average. If you look at the average of inhabitants on Earth, and we have a definition there. Even though we cannot make the diverse worlds, we can, however, understand the places where they've been or they are to the classification that we're trying to do. We can divide them in the general terms. Then it starts a new classification. So primitive worlds. So primitive worlds. What's a primitive world? It's a cavern, a caveman, let's say, for very simple, classification. It's primitive. So we see that in primitive stages. Destined to the first incarnations of human beings, like Homo sapiens. It's really arising. It's what Earth was 30,000 years ago. When Homo sapiens started to really arise and show up on Earth. There's a great book by Yuval, Homo sapiens. Even though he's a materialist person, he brings a lot of information about the arising or the welcoming of this. Earth has already gone through that. So in a time of primitive world, we had no Zoom. Allan Kardec Spiritist groups were not there, or Massachusetts. There was no Harvard, no MIT. Nothing like that existed. We had big animals, animals with a lot of fur, running around the savannas. Those were the primitive worlds. So we have the expiation and trial worlds where evil dominates. So it's Earth. Who is at the helm? It's evil. We know that. Who dominates evil? But is that forever? Or of course it's temporary. Because the worlds are evolving. So what's the teaching that we have here? That the situation that we're living, it's temporary. It's not for good. It's only temporary. Then we have the regenerative worlds. The people are confusing. People are thinking that regenerative worlds are celestial worlds or angelic worlds that have angels flying. No, the regenerative worlds are those in which souls that are they still have to expiate are there. So they're resting towards or the painful of their choices. So it's a resting place. It's a transition.
Mundo de regeneração não é a última categoria.
Regeneration worlds are not the last category as we know it. And that continues. After the regenerative worlds are the blissful worlds, where good overcome evil. So let me call the attention for two things. First, in the regeneration world, at least good is like with evil. Let's look at that. The expiation and trials. Evil dominates. Regenerative worlds, there's an equilibrium, there's a balance. Blissful worlds, good dominates. What about celestial worlds? There's no more evil. There are people thinking that regenerative worlds are celestial worlds, and they're not. We are away from it. We're very away from the blissful or celestial worlds. We have to have patience.
Mas ainda existe um
Good dominates, but there's still evil.
Os espíritos ainda são imperfeitos.
So spirits are still imperfect. So in this way,
Mundos celestes ou
all of the worlds that are celestial or divine,
espíritos
the
depurados,
place where spirits that are almost pure, where exclusively we just have good, exclusively. There is only good. So in this way, people who are waiting for only the good, well, you have to wait a little bit more.
nós vamos ter que passar pela
We're
regeneração.
going to have to go through the world of regeneration, and only after you become a pure spirit, then you're going to go to a celestial world.
Então, outro dia eu recebi
So the other day, I heard a sentence from Instagram, and it said like this: we human beings on Earth,
estamos mais para primatas sem
we're
pelo
much closer to a primate with hair than angels with wings.
nós estamos mais próximos do mundo
We are
primitivo.
much closer to the primitive worlds than the celestial worlds.
Pega a classificação aí.
So let's take a look at the classification again. So primitive, trials and expiation, regeneration, and celestial. We're much closer to the primitive world.
Mas qual que é a lição aqui?
And what is the lesson that we learned from this? Kardec said, Earth belongs to the trial and expiations world. And that's the reason why men live here, and we are always living with a lot of misery and suffering. And why? Why are we facing so many difficulties? Because this is a world of trials and expiation, which is changing. And we're going to be promoted.
Que vai progredir.
We're progressing, we're evolving. Earth is going through this process, and it will become a regeneration planet.
Aí em Boston está no inverno.
In Boston right now, it's really cold.
Como é que acontece para sair do inverno e
So
passar para
how do we go about leaving winter and then go through spring? Well, like overnight, it all happens? No. Things, I mean, how do we do it? You know, snow starts melting. It's little by little. There is a transition. So we right now are going through a transition as well. We're going to leave this very rigorous and hard winter, and we're going to go to spring, but it takes time. It does take time. It's not as quick as that.
Mas qual que é a mensagem que eu
So
gostaria
what is the message that I would like you to take with you
com essa leitura?
with this reading
A
is,
mensagem é:
and the message is,
a Terra está progredindo.
Earth is progressing.
Ela está a caminho de
Earth is on its way of what? Of a celestial world.
nós estamos a caminho dos
We
mundos.
are in our way to a celestial world. That's our
E vou
destiny.
dizer mais, esse
And
é
let
o
me tell you something
determinismo
else.
divino.
This is our divine
Então, existe
determinism.
determinismo
So
que
there is a
você
determinism
será
that
um
that
puro.
says you will be
Você
a pure
será
spirit.
100%
You
feliz.
will
E
be
você vai,
100% happy,
quer
and
você
you will
queira
live
ou
in
não.
the celestial world, whether you like it or not.
É um determinismo divino.
That's the that has already been determined,
Por isso
and that
que a doutrina
because
espírita é
of
o
that,
consolador prometido.
the doctrine, the spiritist
Não se
doctrine, is a
perturbe o vosso coração.
is consoling to
Credes em
us.
Deus.
Do not
Crede
despair.
também nisso.
Believe
Na
in
casa de meu pai
in
há
God.
muitas
Believe in me.
moradas.
In the
Agora
in
dá
the
para
mansion of my Father, there
entender
are many
a
rooms.
força consoladora
The
dessas
strength
palavras
of
de
this
Jesus.
the strength of
A
of these
força
words is really
consoladora.
consoling
Nós
to us.
estamos no segundo degrau.
We are in the second step, so let's just be a
Não
little
se
bit
sobe
patient.
uma escada,
We don't go up the stairs jumping
mas cada um
steps.
sobe
We
degrau por
go
degrau.
one step at a time,
Degrau por degrau.
step at a time.
É por isso que no último capítulo
And
do livro
that's the why in the last chapter of Genesis, the book, on the first
do
edition
livro A Gênese
of the book
saiu no final
Genesis,
de 1868.
that it was in late 61.
Depois, a última edição
And after that, on the last with the last edition, when
1869.
and then Allan Kardec was still alive. It was in late 67. And why am I saying that? Because we feel like this was written like not very long ago. I mean, this first item of the last book of the last part of Genesis, and there is one that talks about signals, I mean, signs of the times. It's as if it were written yesterday. Listen. So here comes the time. Everyone tells us times that have been marked by God when big happenings are going to take place so that humanity can regenerate and evolve. So if someone asks me, Haroldo, what is the purpose of this pandemic? It's so that humanity can regenerate. What is the purpose of all of this conflict, social and political? So that we can evolve, so that we can regenerate. These are the big happenings right now. So then take a look at this. So, and then they make it more clear. How could we understand that? For those that do not believe, there is nothing to be really learned. It doesn't matter. I mean, the people who don't believe in anything, they just believe that Earth is coming to an end. I mean, if you have seen that George Clooney's last movie, I believe it's on Netflix right now. Yeah, that's it. So everything is going to be destroyed. Let's go to another planet. It's all over.
Essa é a visão do incrédulo.
That's the view that a lot of people who are not believers have. Nothing. It's just something that is not, I mean, there is really nothing there. But for those,
da subversão das leis da natureza.
it really feels like something that goes against nature laws. There are some people who believe that God is going to come and go against the divine and natural laws. And that's really wrong. All of these interpretations are wrong. So what does Kardec bring to us? He talks about the non-believers and fanatism. Both are wrong. We need to have faith, but with reason. We need to have faith that is founded in logic, in science. Isn't it?
E aí diz,
and then we keep on saying, everything in creation is harmony. That's the second item. Everything in creation is harmony. Everything has a provision. Everything has been prepared. Everything has been cared for. We are allowing our hearts to be filled with anguish. No, God does not do anything without a reason.
Deus é previdente.
God is always anticipating things. He's very prudent. He organizes everything.
Meta, prazo,
God has mission and purpose and chronograms, and
tudo organizado.
everything is really organized.
Tudo organizado.
Everything is organized.
Uma
Yes, it's
que não se desmente. Nem
he
nas
had it doesn't get lost. Not in the little things, not in the large things. There are things that we really have to stop obsessing about. Everything is really aligned with the wisdom of God.
Deus é sábio.
God is wise and loving.
Em segundo lugar,
And
se a
in
nossa
second place,
está destinada para a realização de
if
certas
right now, if our times is destined to go through things, there is a reason why we are going through everything that we are
e aí
going
os
through.
espíritos começam a falar.
And spirits tell us that,
Olha o que Kardec escreve.
listen to what Kardec says. And
Diremos que
then we will say, our globe, our planet,
tudo o que
like everything there is, we are also subject to the law of progress. Look at how beautiful that is. Earth is also subject to the law of progress. That's it, period. Earth is going to progress physically with the transformation of all the elements, and also morally through the filtering and through the involvement of spirits who are incarnated and discarnated. It is a double progress. Earth is really evolving physically, and also the inhabitants of Earth are progressing. And that's the point.
Esse é o ponto.
That's exactly what we mean.
Aí Kardec diz assim,
And then Kardec says,
pulando dois parágrafos para baixo.
so we're going to
Ainda no item 2, claro. De duas maneiras se executa esse duplo progresso.
in two ways this progress happens. It happens in two ways. One that is very slow and that has no end.
Essa é a primeira.
That's the first one.
Gradual e
Slow,
tem dois
almost imperceptible. I mean, we have been evolving in the past 2,000 years, but it's all we can hardly see it. Well, let me tell you one thing.
esse dom na época
This
do Cristo,
this gift
as famílias nobres
during Christ's time, well, we used to buy slaves, and we used to hurt their eyes so that they could not see things. Do you think that we have do you think we have evolved, or do you have in Boston right now slaves and you're hurting their eyes? So yes, we have evolved. Has it been a slow evolution?
gradual,
It has been very gradual, and it's almost we can hardly see it. But there is also another way to progress.
mudanças bruscas.
There is another way to progress, which is a very rapid way, very rapid changes.
A cada uma das quais corresponde
From
movimento a ser
each one of them,
que assinala
they correspond to something that needs to change also rapidly.
períodos progressivos da
We
humanidade.
need to take a look at the periods, the changing periods of humanity. All of these
Ao livre-arbítrio dos homens,
all of these linked to the free will of men, and sometimes they're fatal
sujeitos à lei.
because they're also subject to the law. What I mean is, we are all living through a very rapid evolving period.
Brusco.
It's very rapid, it's drastic. Pandemics,
Esses desafios todos é uma
all of these
mudança
challenges,
brusca.
it is a very fast change, a very intense change.
Uma mudança intensa.
It's a
rápida.
very intense and quick, profound change we're going through. And that's why we are a little bit scared.
Por isso nós estamos assustados.
And that's why we're scared. But
Agora, indo lá para o livro
Now,
A Caminho,
going all the way to the book, the way that we have translated here.
no capítulo 1, primeiro parágrafo,
In the very first chapter,
pela psicografia de Francisco,
Emmanuel brings us through the psychography of Chico Xavier
uma informação
a
preciosa.
very valuable information.
Jesus nos pediu voto de
Why did Jesus ask us to really trust him?
Por que ele disse assim?
What did he say?
Creia em mim,
Believe also in me.
confie em mim, me
Trust
dê
me.
voto de confiança.
Give me,
Pediu isso lá no capítulo
give me
14
a
do
vote.
Evangelho de João.
Please do trust me.
Agora nós vamos entender.
So now we're going to learn why.
Diz assim,
Emmanuel says,
a comunidade dos espíritos
the
puros.
community of pure spirits. Community.
Rezam as tradições do mundo espiritual.
Traditions in the spiritual world say
Direção de todos os fenômenos do nosso
that
sistema.
within all of the phenomena in our system, and here he's talking about the solar system. He's not talking about only Earth. He's talking about the solar system in the direction of all solar system phenomena. There is a community of spirits who are pure and have been chosen by God himself. So listen, you cannot only be pure, you have to be pure and chosen by God himself. So these beings have been chosen.
Em cujas mãos, ou seja, nas mãos desses espíritos, se conservam as rédeas diretoras da vida.
And these pure spirits are the ones that actually help with the evolution of Earth. So we're not only talking about Earth, we're really talking about a whole system where we have the earthly population, and we of all the other orbits as well. We all have a collective of planets.
Cada planeta é uma embarcação.
Each planet is a boat that has its crew and also its passengers.
E o seu comandante.
And also its commander.
Oh, captain, my captain.
Oh, captain, my captain. As we were just talking about a little while ago.
Tem captain.
There is a captain.
Seres angélicos e perfeitos.
Angelic and perfect beings.
Membros divinos.
Of which Jesus is one member, just one of the members. So here now we know who Jesus was. Jesus was one of the Christs that really makes all of this community. And then Emmanuel tells us, it has been given to us, we have been told. We have been told that, they're here around us. They are the directors of the solar system. And where do they meet? Well, that's easy. I don't know. That is I don't know.
Não sei onde eles se reúnem.
I don't know where they meet.
Eu não sei nem quantas vezes eles
I don't even know how many times they do it. Or, if they do it on a monthly basis. Oh, listen. Oh, and listen, Emmanuel also does not know, but what he says is, from what I know, they met twice. The first time when Earth was being formed, and then the second time when they were deciding about Jesus' life. And at the end of this book, what does Emmanuel tell us? That they would meet once again. And this was in 1938.
Essa obra
So this book was published in the 17th of August of 68.
dizia que eles
And here is Emmanuel telling us that they're going to meet once again on Earth so that they can plan the planetary transition. So now I ask you, do you think that COVID has just gone through them without being noticed?
Você acha que passou despercebido?
Do you think that they didn't know about it? Do you think that what's going on right now here in the United States and in the world, all of this Christ? Oh no, they had no idea?
É claro.
Of course.
É claro que eles
Obviously, they have been mapping everything that is going on right now.
se CEO de uma grande
If
empresa faz
if the CEO of a big company does that,
Você pega uma empresa, por
if
exemplo,
you have a company, for an example, a big company like Tesla or Apple or Microsoft, you have great CEOs and they make projections and they study and they plan of at least 3 years ahead, right? Sometimes even more. Now, right now, in some companies here in the United States, they're already working. They're already working on projects that are going to be they're going to be come true in 4 years. Isn't it true now?
Cristo
But
planetário.
now the Christ, a community of Christ who's responsible for Earth. Do you really think that they don't know what's going on? Of course not.
Então, nós estamos
So we are
sob a proteção
under their protection, under the protection of God. And all of these beings that God has chosen personally to really guide us through to guide us through everything that we're going, our whole solar system, our whole earthly system. Now there's something else.
Se você já fez cruzeiro, se você já
If you have already been in a cruise in a big boat, I'm going to ask you,
você está lá na sua cabine,
you are there in your cabin,
você está lá na mesa fazendo
you're there, or you're eating on your table. Do you know what the captain is looking at?
Você tem acesso às
Do you have access to all the information that the captain of your ship has? No, you don't. You don't have that information.
as informações que a cabine de comando
The
tem,
information that the commander's cabin, the information that they have is very different from what the passengers do.
não chegam.
No, passengers don't have access to that, but they trust the captain, don't they? When you go into an airplane, and do you know what's going on with the plane? No, you don't. You're sitting back in the plane.
Passa por um momento.
Sometimes there's a little bit of turbulence. Sometimes you have to put your seatbelts on, and sometimes a mask may even fall from up. And right now, there seems that's what's happening, right? Because we literally have to put our masks on.
Mas
But
existe uma cabine
there is a commanding cabin,
que está
a, com-
dirigindo essa
co-
embarcação.
a command central
E é essa
that is really guiding everyone. And that's the message that I want to leave you. That's the reflection that I want you to have, that it's very simple.
além de
That
resgatar
all I did is I just really took a look at some text that we have that gives us a lot of hope, that really fills our hearts with hope, with trust. All of these texts. And this has been said 100, I mean, even more than 100 years ago, 130, 140 years ago.
já foi dito
It has already been said
para mostrar
to show
que a doutrina espírita
that the Spiritist doctrine is consoling. It's our promised consoler, and it will alleviate our hearts through this planetary transition. And I would like to end
com a poesia
with
da
with a poem from Maria Dolores, which was psychographed through Francisco Cândido Xavier. And this is a time when I put Flavio in a very awkward situation because it's a little bit hard to translate. And it's talk, dear soul,
te atormente,
No matter how much the world torments you, keep your good faith strong. Even when cold feelings embrace your heart
que atraiçoa,
in the betraying shadows,
escuta,
sincere soul, listen,
sofre,
suffer, tolerate, and bear.
apenas
Learn
soa,
and evolve,
porque de esfera a
because from sphere to
ninguém
sphere,
consegue a palma da vitória sem apoio na luta.
no one gets to victory without the fight.
Espera,
Wait.
porque a esperança é a luz
Have
do
hope, for hope is the light in the world. It's a hidden wonder
toda parte. Se
that
revela
reveals itself and shines for the glory of love.
à noite.
Night
Espera o dia.
awaits for day,
A flor
the flower
espera o fruto.
for the fruit,
O espinho
the
espera a rosa.
thorn waits
O
for the
mármore
rose,
espera o
and the
cimento.
marble waits for the
O
chisel.
próprio solo bruto
Even hardened soil awaits for the
armado de
farmer
atenção, arado e zelo.
with his love, care, and plow.
Espera o sol
Worms
para aquecê-lo.
wait for the sun to
A
warm them.
fonte amiga que se desentranha do
The
coração de
friendly spring that leaves the entrails of rocks in the mountain
passa e se incorpora.
flows and grows as it works as a servant of rivers that engulfs its water. It waits to retire the great
A paz
peace
da grande vida
of life
que há no seio do
that
mar.
it can find on the base of the sea.
Seja o que for que
Whatever you come to suffer,
seja o que for,
whatever you come to suffer,
abraça o
embrace the
regenerador.
idea of regeneration,
Por dever,
of forgiveness.
perdoa.
Forgive.
Leva pacientemente o fardo que te leva.
Carry your burden patiently,
Vento
even through the roaring wind and cursed darkness. Bless your way, all the way, even through anguished whipping in horrible whirlwinds. Keep going without stopping, loving, restoring, redeeming yourself.
edificando em suma. Não
In
te
summary,
revoltes contra coisa
do not rebel against anything.
Não te revoltes contra coisa
Do
alguma.
not rebel
Ao
against
fim da tarde
anything.
mansa,
When the soothing afternoon comes to be in the sweet quietness of dusk,
verás como foi alto
you will see how noble and beautiful it was,
a alegria.
the adventure of really waiting.
E enquanto a noite avança,
And while night comes to give you the hope of seeing dawn,
bendirás a amargura
you will
e a prova.
you will look at pain and all of the trials, and you will thank earth
De entender.
that now you do understand and you comprehend, and will elevate.
Subirás para o
You will elevate.
nas estâncias da
You elevate and nestle within light and peace.
tecido em radiações de estrelas.
You're going to irradiate through stars, and then you're going to understand
Além
that even beyond,
So you will understand, which
beyond
in
of the
addition to the
beyond,
beyond, at the
in
heart
the
of
heart
height,
of the
God
most
works.
high,
Once
in the
again, at the
highest,
heart of height,
da altura,
in the highest,
God
in the
works.
heart of the highest,
God
God works.
dreams.
God dreams.
God
God
seeks, and God
searches,
waits
and God
too.
also waits.
espera por nós.
God waits
God
for
waits
us.
for us.
Pelo progresso da
God waits for the
God
progress of
waits
earth.
for the progress of earth.
terra ser
God waits that earth will be a celestial world.
God
But
waits for a
wait,
celestial
we
world,
still have a lot of
a
regeneration
blissful
to go
world,
through
as we
until we
know.
become a celestial world.
So thank you, my dear friends.
all my brothers and
Let us
sisters. And now
open
we're going
up
to
to
open for
a
a little bit of
interaction
interaction.
of Q&A.
Thank you, Haroldo.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
all
for
of you who are
everyone who
watching
is
us.
watching now.
We
We
have some
have
questions
received a few
here.
questions, and we're going to open this
So if you are following us
whoever
through our
is,
social media, please feel free to submit your questions,
whoever is here on
either
the
in
Zoom, and
Portuguese or in
if
English.
you want to send a question through the chat
So
in
if you are
Zoom
at Zoom or if you are
or
in our
or
social
in the
media,
Q&A, we're going to
so we're going to be
tell Haroldo
sending
now
Haroldo the
all of the
questions.
questions. Okay, so let's
Let's tell me
start
one
with
of
this
these.
one. So when you were
When you're
talking
talking about the John's Gospel, when Jesus, let me read here. So thank you for your words.
I am so thankful for
Your message has come to our soul. When Jesus went to the Father,
So when God goes
was he
into
doing an
God,
individual work, but he opens up a way so that we're seeing it.
and who I believe it. I believe the question is at the last part.
O que é esse preparar o lugar, né?
So what is this preparing the place? What is this preparing?
Coisa que nós precisamos compreender é que
So the
Jesus
thing that we need
sabe onde
to,
a gente quer chegar.
so we have really to understand where we want to get. That's the important thing. So Jesus is already an inhabitant of a celestial world.
Então, onde o Cristo mora,
So
o bem
where Christ is,
soberano e exclusivo
good really reigns. It is sovereign of that
A
world.
morada do Cristo é morada de
The
espíritos.
home of Christ is the home of pure spirits.
Felicidade
That's where we only have 100% of happiness.
Então,
So
quando Jesus veio à Terra,
when
ele
Jesus came to earth, he didn't come on his own. And not for himself. He came because of us. He came because of love.
veio por amor.
He came for love.
E o preparar lugar aqui
And the preparing of the place here, it's not the physical place, because everything here on earth is already.
o universo
The universe.
bilhões de mundos celestes.
I mean, there are billions of celestial worlds in the universe. Actually,
E que tem pouco é muito
what we don't have in the universe is our primitive world.
solar. Onde
Take a look at the primitive world. Let's see if we find anyone with our physical body. No, we can't find them, and that's proof. I'm not affirming anything. Okay, I'm just telling you so that you start wondering.
justificação e prova.
I actually believe that the primitive worlds are a minority. I look at the solar system and I see, there is no one around out there with a physical body that is in wars and destroying the planet that they live in.
Então, quando Cristo nos
So
diz
when Christ tells us that he's going to prepare a place, it is really preparing our hearts,
porque
because
existe passaporte espiritual
there is a spiritual passport
ingressar
so that we can
em certos mundos, em
so
certos
that we can
espirituais.
have we can get into very special worlds, because in order to do that you need to be morally perfected,
E para adquirir esse passaporte,
and in order to get that passport,
difícil que é o green card, que
it's much harder than getting a green card.
esse é dificílimo.
That is really, really hard.
Requer séculos de
It
aprimoramento.
requires centuries of improvement and evolvement. And that's the preparing, that's the planning. So when Jesus talks about the relationship with God, he is really, part of God.
Em função da
And
evolução
because of his spiritual evolution, the relationship that he has with God is really close because of his condition, his moral condition, which is very different from ours.
do que a nossa. Então, se ele foi escolhido por Deus,
So if Jesus was chosen by God to become part of the Christ community,
o Criador está permanentemente
the
orientando.
Creator is constantly guiding this community.
inteligências divinas agregadas ao
divine intelligence that are added to a divine circle that you can it's hard to describe. So in 1868, there is a book that talks about these beings being agents of God. They are CEOs of creation.
Mas o dono da companhia é Deus.
But the owner of the company is God. So the owner of the company is God.
Então é esse o sentido de preparação.
And this is and that's the whole idea of preparation. Yeah, there's a lot of preparation goes into this. And we cannot forget one thing, here on earth,
Tem espírito igual a mim e tem
there are spirits just like me, and there are spirits that are just like Joanna de Angelis and Emmanuel. So let's not think that every spirit here are the same. There are some that are a little bit below our level of evolution. There are some that are higher. So there are already there are spirits on earth that are already taking advantage of this evolution. And it's very important for us to think about that. I think that your answer actually answers two other questions that we have here. The first one is really talking about the preparation. It's talking about this preparation that requires a little preparation of soul. So I'm going to read so that I'm not missing anything. So what would be this what kind of attitudes? So
Exato.
So we need really to practice all of the words that Jesus said. And instructed by what Jesus said, what does he wish for us? It's this communion with God. And we need to do the same things that he did, multiplying the good things and always obeying.
E até fala do sacrifício de Jesus que
And
parecia
even talks about the sacrifice that God made.
Então, acho que essa
So I believe it's,
Ele transformou a terra.
well, let's think that the sacrifice of God and Jesus actually transformed earth. And Jesus' life actually made the transition of earth.
Então, eu acho que o programa que a Elisandra colocou aí é o
So
nosso.
I believe that. So I believe that this question is like our homework for our whole lives, right? It's a very hard homework to do, but we have to do it.
Uma hora nós vamos nos tornar hábeis no exercício
Well, we will.
das 3 etapas aí.
Bom, chegou uma outra pergunta aqui que é minha curiosidade, e eu acho que você já respondeu também.
I think you already have answered it.
Da expansão dos seres humanos da Terra.
What's the impact of the expansion of human beings on Earth or other planets? For example, Elon Musk trying to really inhabit Mars and all these things. Maybe Moon will be a trials and expiations. What about Mars? And how does that work? So we have an answer from the Spirits book in the beginning, where Allan Kardec answered spirits. God has imposed a limit to human knowledge, and we have a limit of wisdom or knowledge that God has put on us, which is abide to our physical body. So of course, scientific development is great because scientific fiction is great, but we can imagine everything is possible. Everything is possible in science fiction. It's the interesting piece is that light takes a little over 8 minutes to leave sun and arrive on Earth. Not even the most distant planet. 8 minutes. And it travels at 300,000 kilometers a second. So that gives us an idea of the dimension of the solar system and all of its limitation of our physical bodies. So it's in summary, in a nutshell, we are children kids playing.
Nós não temos esse acesso
We
que a
don't
gente
have the access that we imagine we have.
não tem.
We don't have that.
É um acesso aqui.
So it's an access here and there. It's not unlimited as we wish it was.
E demais,
And furthermore,
todo o progresso tecnológico,
all of the technological progress, everything that we're able to do are concessions
da governadoria
of the spiritual governance of earth
concessões.
to us. So it's a concession.
Então, à medida que nós vamos
We're giving at the effort that we're advancing, more concessions are made.
a Terra progredir moralmente,
And as earth progresses morally, like very soon other highly moral, highly evolved spirits will continue to reincarnate, we have even more concessions.
concessões para atuar na genética,
Concessions to act on genetics, to develop a more advanced motor, the less fossil fuels, to use technology. Why? Because more evolved
mais liberdade.
we are, more freedom we have, more access we have.
O seu passaporte
More, your passport gives you entry to different places. So we are starting Moon and Mars. Of course, we're maturing ourselves. We're leaving the spiritual infancy in order to really enter maturity.
espíritos sopram onde quer,
So the spirits just go wherever they want.
vão onde quer.
They go wherever they want.
Isso é que nos aguarda.
And this is what awaits us. It's beautiful.
Só que tem limite do
But there's a limit, obviously.
tem certas coisas
There are certain things that we cannot do with a physical body. For example,
que corpo material consegue chegar à velocidade.
no material body can arrive at the speed of light, not even 60% of the speed of light. Because at the time you reach great speeds, the force for you to accelerate becomes infinite. It's a limit. It's a material limit that God has imposed to material bodies.
É limite.
It's a limit. Simple as that.
Então, se tem
So,
uma coisa na luz,
if there's one thing that would never do is surprise God.
não vai acontecer.
It's never going to happen.
Deus fala assim, nossa,
God says, oh my
os
God,
habitantes da Terra fizeram
the earth did this that I've never even imagined. No,
ilusão.
it's illusion.
Isso é ilusão.
It's illusion. It's an illusion.
Nós temos mais uma pergunta.
We have another question here
Viu?
that has come.
O mal às vezes é muito chocante.
Evil sometimes is very shocking.
E às vezes
And
tem questões de interpretações. Né?
sometimes it's a question of interpretation.
Bem, ela
Sometimes people think he's doing something good because he believes so much in that truth
e, às vezes ela não sabe a
that
diferença.
sometimes they don't know the difference.
Quais que seriam assim
What will be the
conselhos, né, os ensinos do Cristo
advice from Christ
quando a gente se sente chocado
when we feel shocked
opinião diferente, uma
by a different opinion,
opiniões políticas, até
political attitude, behavior
né?
from other human beings?
Estão fazendo correto.
So, for example, people that are thinking they're doing the right thing, how do we deal with that according to what Christ told us?
É necessário que
So it's
tenha
the scandalous is needed, but be careful for those who generate the scandal. Why is it necessary?
eu não posso exigir
Because
de uma criança,
I can demand from a child the behavior of an adult.
mas ai daquele que
But
faz um escândalo,
if from those that the scandal came through, it's an educational law, nevertheless.
então é assim, Raul,
So
eu acho que fazer isso
I think
não é
that
mal,
doing this is not evil, it's good. And then you're back
o que você fez.
and you receive what you did.
Aí você vai ser educado.
And then you're gonna be taught.
E Deus
I mean,
fala
do you
assim,
understand? So for example,
eu acho
I don't think this,
do Naú,
I'm a Noah's partner and I don't believe it's wrong to steal him or to rob from him. I don't think it's wrong.
eu acho,
I think it's okay.
eu acho
Everybody does it.
relativo.
Everything is relative.
Aí numa próxima encarnação,
And then in a new incarnation,
viver
I'm gonna live
o que eu fiz.
what I did.
Então você vai ter a oportunidade
So you're gonna have an opportunity
de ficar no outro lado.
to be on the other side.
Aí você vai aprender o que
Then
é bem, o que
you're gonna learn what's good and what's bad, what's evil and what's good.
Então, a lei de causa e
So the cause and effect law has a pedagogical
quando a gente
pedag-
sofre o mal.
feeling or teaching, not when you
Quem está
you
fazendo?
do the evil, when you suffer the evil. Because of course when you're doing the evil, you think it's good.
Quem tá batendo não está sentindo dor.
If you are hitting, you're not feeling the pain.
Eu vou contar um caso aqui.
I'm gonna tell a story here.
Grande amigo aqui, um senhor, Quincas
It's a
Veloso.
great friend
Autorizou a dizer.
from Brazil, Quincas Veloso,
Do Chico conviveu
very good friends of Francis Xavier.
um dia,
One day,
invadiram o escritório dele, roubaram
they
tudo.
broke into his office and they stole everything.
Computador,
Computers, everything. Money, everything.
escritório de contabilidade.
It was an accounting firm.
E além de roubarem tudo,
So even
destruíram tudo.
after they stole everything, they destroyed everything. They destroyed sinks. It was a vandalism.
Eles
Not just
ficaram
they.
tudo quebrado.
When he got, everything was broken and destroyed and vandalized. Of course, he was very sad.
E à noite,
And then at night,
trabalho com o Chico.
he was works with Francis Xavier.
Em Uberaba,
At this time, he used to live in the same city where Francis Xavier
e aí,
was there. So they met, Chico, as we carefully say,
filho, você tá tão...
and Chico said, my son, why are you so mad? Or said,
E contou.
I won't even tell you. And he told the story.
Aí disse que o Chico abraçou,
And then Chico hugged him very carefully, very,
abraçou e falou para ele assim: Ô meu filho,
oh, my
é
son,
tão bom devolver.
it's so good to give back.
É tão bom devolver.
It's so good to give back.
Então, essa questão é muito
So this question is great because
porque hoje nós vivemos
today we live
moral. As pessoas
a moral relativism. But people think everything's right. Everything's right. There's no evil anywhere.
permitido.
Everything is permitted. I can do whatever I want.
Então, o que é providência?
So what does
Ela faz você
divine providence does? We're back, we reincarnate,
e
and then we experiment
você fez.
what we did.
Pimenta no olho é bom?
So
Depende do
pepper in somebody else's eyes,
Se
right?
no olho do outro,
so if it's somebody else's,
mas
it's
quando
no problem. Or when it's ours, it really hurts.
aí eu aprendo.
So then I learn.
A lei de causa e
So
efeito,
cause and effect, the law of cause and effect is for us to learn, folks.
o mal
How evil is bad.
para que a gente aprenda
So that we learn
justiça é
how injustice is bad. How violence is bad. How prejudice is bad.
quanto que a covardia
How cowardness is bad.
isso que serve.
It's for that the law of God and cause and action,
Tira o mal
action and reaction, or cause and effect acts on. It's for us to really feel the evil
bem
on our skins, that only good
merece a nossa
deserves
consideração.
our consideration and our efforts.
É isso.
That's it.
Sabe o que eu tô entendendo?
What I'm
Que toda essa
arriving at is that
fica sentindo, não, como é que é possível uma coisa
all
dessa?
this shock that we feel, how is it even possible? And all that, the lesson is for us. We don't know our past.
Esse mal que a gente está experimentando
So
é
the evil that we are experimenting is for us to experiment.
Para que
a
a gente
nossa
sinta
decisão.
So it's for us to feel what is injustice, what is prejudice,
maldade.
what is evil,
O que é traição?
what is betrayal,
Abandono.
what is, abandonment, slander, and all these things. It's for us to learn the bitter taste of evil.
Porque quem faz o mal
Because
não
if
está experimentando.
whoever is doing evil is not experimenting its taste.
Exato. Acho que a gente tem mais uma perguntinha
We
aqui.
have one last question.
E aí, pra você, o nosso tempo tá meio acabando.
Our time is short,
8 minutinhos. Você quer fazer um
but
fechamento
would
do-
you like to do a closing, or
Pode? Mais uma aqui.
we can finish with the question?
Pegar aqui que ela chega em espanhol e tem que traduzir para
So
português.
the question arrived in Spanish.
No início do evangelho,
At the beginning of the gospel, John used to say that every action of God in the world should be understood as the light of relationship between the Son and the Father. And then it goes to the presence of God in us. Is that what's the the Holy Ghost.
Essa pergunta, ela
So
tem
this question has two ways of skinning it. The first one, in the Old Testament that was written in Hebrew, the Holy Ghost,
né?
the Holy Spirit was defined as God.
Ele é o Espírito,
It's the Spirit,
o grande Espírito.
the great Spirit.
Santo em hebraico,
And then saint in Hebrew is Kadosh. That means pure, reserved.
o que tá. Então Deus,
So God is God.
então ele é o Espírito.
God is the Spirit.
É uma que é chamada Ruach Kodesh. O Ruach é
Ru-
aquilo que não é material.
It's what's Spirit's not material from Hebrew,
A gente aprende no livro dos Espíritos.
in the way that we learn in the Spirit's book.
O Espírito Santo significa
So the Holy Spirit,
imaterial.
God is the immaterial being, non-corporeal, that
Para além da
is
criação.
beyond creation.
Então tem uma frase
There's a
dos
phrase
sábios judeus que diz
from
assim:
a wise Jewish person,
onde o infinito
where
termina,
infinite ends, God starts.
porque nós não podemos confundir
Because we cannot confuse God with his creation. He's the author of the painting. We cannot confuse Mona Lisa with Da Vinci.
Então esse é o Ruach Kodesh.
So Ruach Kodesh in Hebrew.
Todos os seres
All of the beings that become pure,
Espírito Santo.
also become Holy Spirits. Why?
Porque eles entram na
Because they
comunhão.
enter in the communion with God.
Não é? E o filho aí
So the Son here is the governor of our planet. It's that Christ, chosen by God to govern the planet Earth. That's the Son.
é o filho amado.
So it's a loving Son,
É o filho amado.
the loving
É o
Son.
primogênito, o filho mais velho.
So it's the first Son. Why the first Son?
Do filho mais
What's the function of a first son in the Hebrew
velho. Os irmãos mais novos.
Hebrew culture? To take care of the younger siblings.
Então Jesus é nosso
So Jesus is our big brother because he takes care of us.
É simples.
It's simple. It's simple.
Vou chamar a Dirce
We're
para ela
gonna
fazer o encerramento
call
para a gente lá no centro.
our
Ela
friend Dirce
falar as palavras
to
dela.
close our activities for today.
Mas muito obrigado, Haroldo. É um prazer.
Thank you, Haroldo. It was a pleasure to welcome you here.
Esquecer nosso
We
passado lá.
cannot forget our past.
Muito gostoso. Eu era criança, conhecendo o Espiritismo, e via você, Roberto, Proença, bons amigos. O Marconi acabou de chegar lá, né?
Marconi just arrived at the podium and he's going to do our closing today.
Querido Haroldo,
Dear Haroldo,
obrigado.
thank you very much.
Disse está aqui do meu lado.
We're here.
Imensamente.
Just also thanking you
Estamos
for the opportunity.
física
We miss your physical presence,
por estarmos presentes
but we're also happy, nevertheless,
espiritualmente.
to be here together
Estamos
spiritually,
contando
or thanks to technology.
dias, não só para o coronavírus.
We're all already counting the days for COVID to give us a break, or maybe a permanent break.
Sabe que ele não vai embora, mas a gente sabe que a gente pode
We know it's not going to go away, but we're looking for a truce.
estar presencialmente
And may you be here present
mais uma vez.
with us
Lembramos
physically as well.
em que você esteve
We
conosco.
remember the day that you were here with us.
Muito frio.
It was very, very cold.
Haroldo, eu acho que você traz frio
And
na
I
bola.
think you bring cold to Boston because even today, it's very cold here as well.
Tá muito frio. Mas estamos com
So,
orações
Our hearts are filled with
pela oportunidade.
gratitude, are warmed up for listening to your words, for those that are here presently in our Spiritist Center, but also those that are following us through our social media. So we thank you very much. Our special thanks. I believe you know that You're always connected. You travel when you can. Once the pandemic is over, you have a reserved place in Boston's heart. So consequently in our hearts as well. So we wait for you to come. So we'll let you say goodbye to our friend and all these opportunity to learn so much. And again, to bring our hearts at peace, thanks to these words, teachings that enable us and help us go through these difficult but transition times. Like Haroldo said to us, with Jesus, we will pass. We will go through this. We will overcome this. So let us close our eyes and open up our spiritual eyes, or open up our hearts and thank our beloved Creator of the universe, for the opportunity that we had this morning that reminded us, that taught us for a very special moment. Like to pray to our Jesus, our brother, our friend, our teacher, that may he continue shining light on Haroldo's steps, so that he could continue bringing your teachings to bear, helping our hearts through all the teachings that you have taught us, dear Jesus. And may all of us, whatever we may be, may you be embraced by your constant presence, thanks to our good spirits, emissaries of love, helping us, protecting us, giving us the strength necessary through our faith, through our hope, and the certainty that we are never alone. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for the opportunity once again. With our hearts filled with joy, we say goodbye in your peace. Amen. Thank you once again. And Haroldo, thank you for the opportunity. Let us be at peace.